Imagine a gas so aggressive, it makes bricks burst into flames, sets water on fire, and it eats through solid glass like it is nothing but paper. For nearly a century, the greatest minds in science tried to capture it. Almost all of them ended up blind, horribly injured, or dead. It was a chemical demon that punished anyone who dared to look for it. But what happens when humanity finally cages the most violent substance in the universe? And why is this deadly phantom hiding inside your own home right now? In the 19th century, chemistry was a wild and dangerous frontier. Scientists were discovering new elements at a rapid pace, filling in the blank spaces of our physical world. But there was one blank space that refused to be filled. Chemists knew an unknown element was trapped inside a beautiful, glowing rock called fluorite. It seemed peaceful, but the moment they tried to force the element out of its rocky cage, it fought back with terrifying violence. Those who tried to capture it became known in history as the Fluorine Martyrs. The story begins with two wealthy Irish scientists, the Knox brothers. They knew this mysterious gas was highly corrosive, so they built their experimental equipment out of pure, solid gold. They thought nothing could destroy gold. They were wrong. During their experiment, the invisible gas leaked. The brothers breathed in just a tiny fraction of a breath. It was enough. The gas immediately began reacting, with the moisture in their throats and lungs turning into a deadly, flesh-eating acid. One brother was bedridden in agony for 3 years. The other's health was so broken he had to flee the country, never fully recovering. But the deaths had only just begun. A brilliant young Belgian chemist named Paulin Luyet decided to pick up where the brothers left off. He took every precaution, yet the invisible gas found a way out. It dissolved his lungs from the inside, killing him slowly and painfully at just 31 years old. Shortly after, a French chemist named Jerome Nichols tried to tame the beast. He suffered the exact same agonizing fate. For nearly 100 years, this ghost element remained an undefeated killer. The search for it was considered a scientific death sentence. But humanity never learns to leave dangerous things alone. Fast forward to the late 1930s, right before the outbreak of the Second World War. Scientists in Germany were desperately trying to invent the ultimate weapon for their military. They took this violent element, fluorine, and combined it with chlorine to create a liquid they called Substance N. What they created was, quite literally, a liquid nightmare. Substance N broke every rule of nature we understand. Normally, to start a fire, you need oxygen, fuel, and a spark. This liquid needed nothing. If it touched a piece of cloth, the cloth exploded into flames. If it touched sand, the sand caught fire. It even set fire to asbestos, a material specifically used to stop fires. If you sprayed it on water, the water itself would burn with a blinding, explosive fury. And if it touched a human being, it would not just burn the skin, it would seek out the calcium in their skeleton, dissolving their bones while they were still alive. The German military built a highly classified bunker to produce it, intending to melt through enemy tanks. But the substance was completely uncontrollable. In one infamous incident, a container holding a similar fluorine-based compound cracked. The liquid spilled, instantly erupting into a violent inferno. Didn't just burn the floor. It ate through the metal machinery. Then it melted through thick concrete. It kept burning down into the raw earth and gravel beneath the facility. No water could put it out. No sand could smother it. The scientists could only run for their lives and watch the destruction. The Nazi regime, a war machine known for creating some of the most devastating weapons in human history, eventually shut the project down. They came to a chilling realization. This chemical was too unpredictable, too violent, and too terrifying even for them. Fluorine wasn't just an element. It was pure, unadulterated rage. But where did this chemical demon come from? And how did an element that terrifies scientists end up playing a major role in your daily life? Long before it was melting concrete in secret military bunkers, this element lived a quiet life disguised as a beautiful, glowing stone. Ancient Romans were mesmerized by it. They found crystals of a mineral called fluorite, which shimmered with deep purples and greens in the sunlight. Was so beautiful that Roman emperors demanded it be carved into precious drinking cups. They believed the stone possessed magical properties that gave their wine a sweet, intoxicating flavor. They had no idea they were drinking from the cage of a monster. For centuries, this stone was considered harmless. Medieval miners called it the flowing stone because tossing it into a fire helped melt down raw metals. It seemed like a gift from the earth. But the moment anyone tried to separate the hidden gas from the rock, the illusion of safety shattered. It took until the year 1886 for someone to finally defeat the chemical demon. His name was Henri Moissac, a brilliant French chemist. He looked at the trail of dead and paralyzed scientists before him and realized they had all made the same mistake. You cannot fight this element with brute force. You have to freeze. Moissac built a custom device out of platinum, one of the only metals on Earth that fluorine struggles to destroy. He lowered the temperature to a freezing -50 degrees Celsius to put the beast to sleep. Then he shocked it with electricity. Slowly bubbling up inside his freezing platinum tube, a pale yellowish gas appeared. After a century of death and disaster, human eyes finally looked at pure fluorine. The phantom had been caught. Moissac won the Nobel Prize for his miraculous achievement. But the victory was not without a price. Despite his extreme precautions, the gas had slowly poisoned him throughout his experiments, destroying his health and sending him to an early grave at the age of 54. The demon always takes its toll. But perhaps the strangest thing about fluorine is not how it kills, but where it comes from. Most elements are forged inside the violent explosions of dying stars. But fluorine is different. The intense heat of stars actually destroys it. Because of this, it is surprisingly rare out in the vast dark emptiness of the universe. Yet, by some cosmic accident, Earth is packed with it, trapped deep underground. To understand why fluorine is so violent, you have to look closely at its psychology in the atomic world. Think of elements like people. Some are calm and independent. Others are social. Fluorine is a psychopath. It suffers from an intense, never-ending cosmic hunger. It is desperate to steal tiny particles called electrons from other elements. It wants them more than any other substance in existence. It is so desperate, it will literally rip apart other molecules just to feed its hunger. That is why it burns water. That is why it eats through solid glass, is tearing their atoms apart. But here is the most shocking twist in the story of this terrifying killer. When fluorine finally steals what it wants, its personality changes completely. It stops attacking. It locks onto its victim and refuses to let go, creating one of the strongest, most unbreakable shields in the universe. And that unbreakable shield is exactly why humanity decided to take the most dangerous element on Earth and put it inside your kitchen. Because of its terrifying, split personality, this phantom gas has earned a dark and fitting title: the apex predator of the elements. In the wild, an apex predator sits at the very top of the food chain. Nothing haunts it. Nothing can defeat it. Fluorine is exactly the same. There is no chemical on Earth that can strip an electron away from it, takes whatever it wants from whatever it touches, and leaves behind a trail of destruction. But scientists eventually realized something fascinating about this predator. When fluorine finally captures its prey, specifically atoms of carbon, it sinks its teeth in and never lets go. The bond between them becomes a fortress. In the 1930s, a scientist accidentally discovered a white powder created by this exact bond. When he tested it, he was shocked. This new material was immune to almost everything. You could pour boiling acid on it and it would do nothing. Water slid right off it. Oil couldn't stick to it. Heat couldn't melt it. The most violent, reactive element in the universe had just been used to create the most unreactive, indestructible material ever known. Today, you know this material by its commercial name, Teflon. When you cook eggs in a non-stick frying pan, you are cooking on top of a cage of fluorine. The only reason your breakfast doesn't burst into toxic flames is because the predator is already full, gripping so tightly to carbon that it ignores your food completely. The element that dissolved the lungs of 19th century chemists is now sitting quietly in your kitchen cupboards. But humanity didn't just use the apex predator to make cooking easier. We used it to unleash the greatest destruction the world has ever seen. During the Second World War, the scientists of the Manhattan Project were desperately trying to build the first atomic bomb. But they had a massive problem. They needed a very specific, rare type of uranium to make the bomb work, and separating it from normal rock was almost impossible. They needed a ghost, something that could turn heavy metal into a gas. They turned to the apex predator. By forcing pure fluorine gas to react with solid uranium, they created a heavy, glowing vapor. This allowed them to filter the uranium and harvest the exact explosive material they needed. Without the violent power of fluorine, the atomic bomb that ended the war might never have been built. Even today, you interact with this tame demon every single morning. When you brush your teeth, the tiny amount of fluoride in the paste acts like a microscopic shield. It seeks out the calcium in your teeth, bonding to it and creating a hardened armor against decay. From atomic weapons to toothpaste, from melting concrete to non-stick pans. The apex predator is everywhere. But a predator is never truly a pet. Even when we thought we had it under control, it found a way to threaten all life on Earth. In the 1970s, scientists made a chilling discovery. For decades, we had been using fluorine combined with carbon to create magical gases for our refrigerators and aerosol spray cans. We thought they were completely safe. But these invisible gases were slowly drifting up into the sky, floating miles above the Earth. When sunlight hit them, the cage broke. The apex predator was released back into the wild. High in the atmosphere, the fluorine and its chemical cousins began hunting down ozone, the very gas that protects our planet from the deadly radiation of the sun. The predator was quietly ripping a massive hole in the sky. If we hadn't noticed it and banned those chemicals worldwide, life on Earth as we know it would have slowly burned away beneath deadly solar rays. It was a final, haunting reminder. You can cage a demon. You can use it to build your modern world. But you must never forget what it truly is. Fluorine is the universe's most extreme contradiction. It is the chemical that causes water to burst into flames, yet keeps our food from burning in a pan. Is the element that blinded and killed the brilliant minds who sought it, yet hardens our bones and teeth. It helped forge the weapon that ended the greatest war in human history and nearly destroyed the protective shield of our entire planet. It is violent, it is beautiful, and it is completely unpredictable. If this journey into the dark shadows of chemistry fascinated you, there are many more invisible mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Elements that glow with a cursed light, metals that drive men to madness, gases that can alter reality itself. Subscribe to the channel and join us as we continue to unlock the terrifying, cinematic true stories hiding right in front of our eyes. The elements are watching. Until next time, stay curious,